Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, coming at you with another Real Thoughts video. That's right, another video where it was originally supposed to be a quick thoughts video, but I didn't quite think I could fit it into the 6-minute or under format, so we're going to be taking a slightly longer look at it. So today we're going to be focusing in on Justice League Dark #1 by Tynion IV, Martinez Bueno, Fernandez, and Anderson. So we open up with Zatanna giving a pretty typical performance, but then as she is going to do the very standard rabbit out of the hat routine, all of a sudden some kind of hideous tendrilled creature with thousands of mouths and fingers and tentacles emerges from the hat instead and starts branching out into the room. The audience all starts clapping and stuff. They think it's part of the show, and despite the fact that Zatanna is like, this is not part of the show, they all just keep cheering until the creature reaches out and grabs some of them and starts pulling them back toward the hat. Zatanna just like starts throwing out her backwards speak magic, but it's doing nothing but creating more limbs of the thing, more appendages of it, and making it stronger. And just as some of the audience is about to be pulled in, all of a sudden Wonder Woman freaking shows up and just like slashes through it with her shield. Zatanna tells Wonder Woman that she doesn't know what's going on. Every time she tries to use her magic, things just get worse. So Wonder Woman decides to take a more directly physical approach to it and just starts hacking at the thing with her sword and with her shield. But while she's doing this, Zatanna gets a bright idea, picking up her Zippo lighter and lights the hat on fire, which then just turns the creature into ash. From that point, Wonder Woman like basically tells her that she's there because Zatanna has not been like answering her calls or anything like that. Zatanna's like, well, didn't my manager tell you? I don't answer those until like after I get back from on tour, especially if it's to join some like super secret magical Justice League team. So Wonder Woman has been trying to get her involved in this team for quite a while, but once again, Zatanna declines. Then we cut to later on as we see Zatanna about to attend a meeting of magical people. Some of them being villains, some of them being heroes or anti-heroes, more likely in this scenario. We see that right before her she is preceded by Clarion and Morgan Le Fay. But as she's about to approach the house, we get a snide remark from the shadows in a British accent, and then with the flick of a lighter and a flame, John Constantine reveals himself. Constantine and Zatanna have a nice snarky little back and forth as Constantine's like, really, you're gonna do this? You're gonna go in there and side up with them? She's kind of like, well, like, you know, something's going on and I definitely need to reach out, and these are my people, they're our people. And Constantine reminds her, yeah, our people, I don't know about that, especially after, you know, I'm not really allowed in the house after I got 2 or 3 people in a seance brutally murdered in flames, which, by the way, is Zatanna's father. He's one of the people who that happened to, and he's like, I'm sorry, that was probably kind of rude for me to bring that up. Fed up with his crap, Zatanna begins to head in, but before she goes, she asks him, you think we're going to lose, don't you? And he tells her, no, I think that things are about to change, though. And I don't think those in there can handle change very well. They're afraid of it. What about you? And with that, he disappears into the shadows, and Zatanna enters the house for the meeting. We then catch up with Wonder Woman, who's at the Oblivion Bar having a drink with Detective Chimp, and she's basically lamenting the fact that she's been trying to put together this team to fight the oncoming threat, this mystical threat, but no one from the magic community will trust her because they don't consider her to be a magical person, even though she is literally born of the magic of the gods, and as she says, she was riding mythical animals almost before she could walk. Detective Chimp can empathize, and almost if to prove that point, his barmaid then calls him the Night Master, which extremely upsets him. He tells her, I told you to never call me that. And then kind of seeing the reaction from Wonder Woman, he explains to her that Jimmy, the guy who owned this place, left it and this mystical sword, which by holding the mystical sword, by being the one who possesses it, it makes you the Night Master, who's like the guardian over this realm's mystical universe. And basically after Jimmy died, all of that was bequeathed to him, to Detective Chimp, Bobo. And a lot of the people in the magical community didn't necessarily agree with this, so between that and the fact that Jim died in the bar, it's basically just become kind of a dead spot. Nobody's coming in anymore. And with that little bit of aggravation, that prompts Bobo to hop off his bar stool and say, didn't you say something about bodies to examine? Let's go ahead and get out of here. Then we pop back over to Wintergate Manor and see all the mystical characters, good and bad, talking about what's going on. All of them understand that this is bigger than them, and a few key members with more level heads begin to suggest that they're going to have to work together. Even Lucifer then speaks out, saying that he's going to need help from the Silver City if this is going to work. And this causes a big disagreement that while that goes on, Zoltana, who's kind of sitting quietly off in the corner, listening to everything, just kind of minding her own business, notices there is a potted plant with a huge red eye, staring out, watching everything just as she is. Then we cut to a half a mile beneath the Hall of Justice, where we see a gigantic skeleton of a dragon suspended in mid-air. Wonder Woman then leads Bobo, Detective Chimp, down into the basement, where she tells him, yeah, I haven't really been able to get anyone else on my team, however, we do have a little help with this situation. We then introduce Kurt Langstrom Man-Bat, who has now developed a serum that will allow him to maintain his bat form while keeping his Kirk Langstrom brain. Then he takes them down into the morgue, where he basically reveals that they have all these dead bodies in there who are magicians or people who have died by mystical means, and whatever energy killed them has been mutating them on a cellular level, causing them to, like, develop these strange tendril-like growths. And while the actual biological substance that they're made of is continuing to change, he doesn't detect any signs of life in it. The cells are completely dormant, despite the fact they're going through this metamorphosis. We then cut over to the Tree of Wonder in Salem, Massachusetts, as Zoltana approaches Swamp Thing, who sits in front of the Tree of Wisdom, just taking it all in, seemingly trying to communicate with it. She takes the potted plant that she found at the meeting and throws it at him and says, "Are you serious? You didn't even have the courage to come in there?" And he's like, "No, dude, Jason Blood is there, okay? All those people are there. I don't want to deal with Clarion. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff, okay? No, but I needed to know what was going on, and I thought I could be more use here. And even though I can't talk to the tree, I figured I could talk, and if it felt like it, it could listen." And she's like, "Oh yeah, well maybe it has some answers for us, because this is bullcrap. I tried looking into all my father's old books, and I couldn't find answers anywhere. No one in the magical community knows what's going on." And about that time, the sky begins to darken, and Swamp Thing says, "The tree has an answer." And Sultan's like, "What?" And he's like, "You told me to ask, and if it wishes, it would speak to you, and it wants to." She's like, "Alec, what's happening?" Just as Swamp Thing disappears into a veil of blackness, and there's a light source coming from behind her, so she turns around to see an effigy of her father consumed in the flames that killed him. And he says to her, "Zoltana, my darling girl, I'm so sorry, but this is only the beginning. They are coming." And then suddenly, from the flames that can make him up, a freaking explosion of imagery built into the flame, dancing, comes forth, and he tells her, "This is what I've been training you for ever since you were a little girl. The other kind are coming. Something that is older and more ancient than anything you can know and predates all magic in this realm. This is what you've been preparing for. This is what you are destined for. But you have to be careful. The other kind can see you, and the upside down man is nearly here." And she's like, "Dad, I don't understand." But just as she's starting to say that, this dark, kind of withered figure, who I'm assuming to be the upside down man, appears throughout this vortex of flames that's casting these weird mystical holograms, and just reaches out and starts choking the life out of Zoltana, as Swamp Thing then charges through the darkness trying to rescue her. Back in the morgue, Kirk Langstrom assures them that despite the changes in the forms, that the cellular activity is completely dead, completely dormant, and just as he's saying this, all of a sudden, all the strange mutations sticking out of all the dead bodies start moving and retching to life, and he's like, "This doesn't make sense. all my readings are still saying that they're dormant." And about that time, Wonder Woman is like, "Kurt, I need you to be a little bit more Man-Bat and a little less Kurt Langstrom." And he's like, "Oh yeah, well I have the serum that can let me be a total badass and a raving lunatic. So let me just go ahead and take that." And he injects himself into the neck. He just like rips out of his nerdy clothes and becomes a more pure version of the Man-Bat that we're more accustomed to seeing. The mutated corpses start moving forward, saying, "The other kind are nearby. The other kind are coming. The other kind can see you." Wonder Woman tells Man-Bat to grab Detective Chimp and to fly out of there, because she doesn't know if she can beat them. And if she's going to fail, she's going to fail alone. But then all of a sudden, at that moment, roots and vines spring up, ripping through the floor, throwing the mutated corpses asunder, and a voice says, "But sister, you are not alone. We fight this fight together." And then we reveal that Swamp Thing and Zoltana have come to Wonder Woman's aid. And Zoltana tells her, "Wonder Woman, this is way worse than anything that we ever thought it could be. Something is coming that wants to kill all of magic and humanity with it. And one of us will bring forth this destruction." And that is where this issue leaves us off. So the artwork in this book, guys, is awesomely moody, showcasing a real nice balance between kind of the horror and noir styles. The line work is extremely solid. Like, the basic character models really work for me. Like, everybody, despite having a few changes to their base character models, are easily recognizable. Before the book started off, when I saw the original promotional art, I was not really crazy about the new look for Swamp Thing. Like with him looking like Alan Moore and stuff, but as I'm reading the book, it didn't really bother me or distract me. I am actually used to Swamp Thing changing appearance pretty regularly, so I don't know if it's something that I'm in for the long run, but in general, I still think it looks fine and it works in the book, especially the way that the artist has been rendering it. Beyond that, like, Man-Bat looks really cool. All the characters look either the way they're supposed to or in a way that makes them easily recognizable, and nothing is so far off that it's jarring to pull you out and make you have to, like, consider if it's the same version of the character or anything like that. And while the artwork in this book is definitely good in terms of the lines and the inks, it is definitely the colors that make this book sing. The coloring in this book is absolutely fantastic. As I said, the book is really moody, which you definitely want out of kind of a mystical book, and the coloring really helps sell that. Now, the inking does also have a very big part to play in this, but the truth of the matter is that, like, the heavy blacks mixed with, like, the very vibrant or very moody colors is absolutely what makes this book work. Everything feels unique, but it feels unified in kind of one streamlined story, and, like, the transitions from color to colors happen very seamlessly, allowing you to stay invested in the kind of mystical mood of the entire world. All in all, guys, like, the pencils are great, the inks are great, the freaking colors are great, and they all work perfectly together to create exactly what sequential art is supposed to do for the reader. The writing in the book is also extremely solid. Like, it has a lot to work to do, so keep in mind that this is a first issue. It has a lot of things to set up in order to keep the plot going. It also has to introduce a lot of characters, because while Wonder Woman and Man-Bat and Zatanna and a few other characters like Constantine might be known to a wider audience, there's a lot of characters that are either directly involved in this book or kind of peripherally involved in this book that most people aren't that familiar with. So they have to take their time and really set up all these characters, who I'm guessing a lot of them will start showing back up as this story arc continues. I feel that all the characters are very well characterized. Wonder Woman, I think that while I don't feel that it's 100% the way that I usually view Wonder Woman or like Wonder Woman, I think that it's definitely a great interpretation of her for the story that they're doing. Zatanna, likewise, I feel with her that maybe feels like maybe they kicked her power down a little bit, or just kind of made her a little bit more hesitant to want to pitch in, or a little more hesitant in her confidence in her abilities, basically. But other than that, I would say that everyone is very well characterized, and even those things aren't huge things. It feels more like things that are inserted for the sake of doing character development and plot development. And also at the same time, especially with Zatanna, we haven't seen a whole lot of her since DC Rebirth. She's been in a few books here and there, but there's still a lot of things they could do to, like, re-solidify a updated version of her character, and I kind of feel like that's probably something that's going to happen throughout this book. Now, I know a lot of people might be saying, hey, this story sounds a little bit familiar. Didn't they do this, like, a year or two ago in Marvel Comics with the Doctor Strange story, The Last Days of Magic? And yes, it is extremely similar. However, Doctor Strange Last Days of Magic is not the first story to do it. There are countless fantasy and sci-fi books that basically have that same plot. It is an archetypal story of sci-fi fantasy storytelling, therefore it is something that's going to crop up multiple times. And in truth, when that story is done, a lot of the themes always tend to be the same, but in the same way that there are lots of different stories that are retold for every generation, a lot of those archetypal stories are stories where the underlying themes and subject matter is something that does need to be reinforced for every generation, and it's seeing the retelling of that story through a new prism with a slightly different perspective on it that makes it interesting and relevant. So I'm really interested to see what DC and what Tynion and what these characters will do when put up against something like that. Something that is so archetypal, that is so mythical, that is so big and epic. I cannot wait to see how what might be kind of, again, a archetypal storyline can do kind of cool and interesting things with these characters. I have no doubt I've really enjoyed Tynion's work on Detective Comics, and the way that he dealt with that group dynamic was absolutely awesome. I really loved it. It's one of my favorite things about it, and I'm really, really interested to see what he's going to do with this group of people. I really like a lot of these characters, especially like Detective Chimp and frickin' Swamp Thing, and like Swamp Thing's gotten plenty of play. I feel like Detective Chimp much less so. So I'm very interested to see specifically how they develop that character and maybe kind of Man-Bat, because I feel like Man-Bat might be the Clayface. If you were reading Tynion's Detective Comics, he had a really great arc with Clayface that ran through like the first 25 or 30, maybe even 40 issues of the book. And I feel like maybe Man-Bat is going to kind of be that element in this book. Anyway, again, I know that there are certain elements of the actual plot that have been done before, but I think that there's an interesting and unique enough mix that we could still get something really cool and worthwhile out of it. Right on, guys, so it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely enjoyed this book this week. It has a lot of things going for it. It is extremely well crafted. However, having said that, it is a first issue and it is a setup issue, so while there's great characterization and while there is great introductions for our characters, there's not a whole lot in the way of showing us what the book is actually going to be like from issue to issue. So I'm definitely interested to see what they're going to do with it, and I think I'm going to have to wait for the next issue before I make a firm decision on if this is a book I'm going to keep going with. But I definitely enjoyed it, so this week this book is going to be getting 3.5 out of 5 GGs and a definite recommend. But that's just what I thought, guys. Did y'all check out this book this week? What'd you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with some friends. Also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit that little bell so you can get updates on all the dope content I'll have coming out in the future. Furthermore, guys, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I will have the link for that in the description below. Thank you very much for your time, children of the screen. I hope you all have a good one. Nerd Scum, out.